Now at 5, a new study looks at the impact of a 2019 permitless carry gun law in Oklahoma. Plus, some tips on staying safe while shooting off fireworks for the 4th of July and
leaders believe abortion will become a key election issue. I'm Natalie Brand with a look at how states are responding days after the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
A new study shows gun deaths in Oklahoma have increased since a permitless carry law went into effect. This is KOAM News at 5. The 2019 law allows people over the age of 21 to carry a gun without a permit or training. The newspaper The Oklahoman analyzed state medical examiner data and found the state recorded some of its deadliest months in history since the law took effect. In the decade before permitless carry, only 10 months had 70 or more firearm deaths. From November of 2019 until January, there were 10 months with more than 70 gun-related deaths. Fireworks season's coming up, but before you spark up that fuse, there are some safety tips you should know about. Experts warn you should never aim fireworks at another person because any fireworks, of course, can be dangerous. Also, keep a bucket of water nearby in case you need to quickly extinguish anything. And don't let the small ones fool you. Be careful with those, too.
We really encourage, even more than the big ones, that you do brace the small ones. A lot of people don't brace the small ones, and I feel like it's even more important. It's important for all of them, but maybe even more important for small fireworks than for large ones.
Experts also say to back up to a safe distance after lighting any fireworks. Some McDonald County middle schoolers are reaching out with podcasts to teach 4-staters about the environment and help some of the area's bird population. They're doing a podcast and talking with scientists at KNEO Radio, studying whippoorwills. The population of that bird species is declining in the area, and the students themselves are learning in the process.
Something I wasn't expecting was learning about birds in general coming into this, but as we got to learn more about birds and whippoorwills, it's been a really fun adventure to get to this point.
The program is called SOAP. It's a combination of the words success and hope. Let's check in with Nick Kelly for a first look at the weather.
Temperatures thankfully behaving down. We mainly topped out in the lower to some mid-80s this afternoon. We had some sun out there, no doubt about it, but we've seen quite a bit of cloud cover actually pick up throughout the course of the late afternoon. That's because even though what looks like maybe a couple of weak showers in southeastern Kansas, we're seeing cloud cover streaming in from the west with additional rain trying to work out of southwestern and south central Kansas. That's because we've got a quick upper level wave passing along the jet, which is just south of us. But all it's going to really do for the vast majority of us is just keep the clouds around through the evening hours and into the overnight. Maybe a couple random showers, but right now most of us are around 80, most spots dry, and I expect most of us to stay dry as we go through the overnight. But with enough dry air in place now, I do think temperatures will drop back into the lower 60s. However, the heat, it wants to return at some point. We'll break down when here in a few.
See you then. The Supreme Court today ruled in favor of a former high school football coach who led his students in prayer midfield after games. Joseph Kennedy sued his Washington State School District after they told him to stop. Kennedy claimed it violated his constitutional rights. 6 of the 9 court justices agreed. In her dissent, Justice Sotomayor wrote there were apparent pressures on students to join in the prayer. After a weekend marked by massive nationwide protests and even vandalism, law enforcement officials remain on high alert. The U.S. Supreme Court's historic decision to strike down its nearly 50-year-old precedent on abortion rights has already sparked new legal challenges. Reporter Natalie Brand has more from Washington.
Protesters returned to the U.S. Supreme Court for a 4th straight day after the conservative majority sent the issue of abortion back to individual states.
Abortion rights! Abortion rights!
More than a dozen have so-called trigger laws in place to restrict or ban abortion since Roe v. Wade was overturned, with several more states expected to follow suit in the coming weeks. Mississippi, the state at the heart of the case that led to the Supreme Court's ruling that struck down Roe, certified its trigger law Monday, banning nearly all abortions in 10 days.
The thing that's going to keep me up at night is the women who will lose their lives because they don't have access to care.
But in Louisiana, a civil district court judge has already temporarily blocked the state's trigger laws from taking effect after providers sued.
As a new legal fight begins, Democratic leaders believe the issue of abortion will become key for upcoming midterm elections for the U.S. Congress and at the state level.
We recognize this is just the beginning.
I think this is likely to all be litigated out, dealt with in the various states around the country through the Democratic process.
Meanwhile, leaders in blue states like New York are preparing for a possible influx of women from states with restrictions.
They've been preparing on how do we build the infrastructure so we're here for those women who come into the city for looking for services.
16 Democratic states and Washington, D.C. have laws to protect abortion rights. Natalie Brandt, CBS News, Washington.
The White House and Democratic federal lawmakers have called for Congress to pass a national abortion rights law, but it's unlikely to get enough Republican support. Forensic teams carried bodies away as investigators searched for clues to explain how 21 teenagers died inside a South African nightclub. When witnesses saw victims keep collapsing one after the other, they called police. Investigators say it's possible victims died from something they ate, drank, or smoked. Some on the scene suggest a possible gas leak. Still ahead, a response from the corporate world.
After the Supreme Court's ruling overturning Roe v. Wade, corporate giants are speaking up. I'm Trinity Chavez with how the abortion ruling is pushing companies to confront decisive politics.
And next in Health Watch, how some COVID survivors are dealing with the grief of losing loved ones.
Through Monday only at Ashley.
Topping today's Health Watch, thousands of people in the U.S. could be living with undiagnosed HIV, as fewer people have been tested since the start of the pandemic. The CDC says the number of HIV tests dropped by 44% in 2020. The CDC official warns testing is a core strategy for ending the HIV epidemic in the U.S. The Grand Canyon has reported at least 118 cases of norovirus in just the past 2 weeks. According to park officials, the cases have been cropping up among visitors to the Colorado River and backcountry campers, but it does appear the number of cases has started to level off. With more than 1 million Americans now lost to COVID-19, ripple effects of grief are spreading through the nation. As the toll rises, so do the number of bereaved family members, pain that could linger for generations. Reporter Elise Preston speaks with a New Yorker grappling with the devastating loss, both at home and at work.
For Eileen Jimenez, the past 2 years have brought heartbreak after heartbreak.
They were like one after the other. You know what I mean? Like you don't even have a break to kind of grieve one before you're grieving the next.
COVID-19 took 2 of her uncles and 4 of her close friends.
I lost a very good college friend that I've known for many years, and I just couldn't believe it, right? She just had a baby like 2 years ago.
The pandemic also left gaping holes in her work at Catholic Guardian Services, where she helps find permanent homes for children in foster care. 8 of the foster mothers she works with died of COVID, leaving behind the children in their care.
My heart broke for them, and particularly one that was being adopted, and that was completely disrupted.
More than 1 million Americans have now died of COVID-19. Research at Penn State University shows for each of those deaths, at least 9 family members are left behind as survivors.
Our results would imply that with over 1 million individuals who died of COVID-19, that over 9 million people had lost a parent, sibling, spouse, child, or grandparent in the U.S.
Ashton Verdery helped lead the study.
I think that it's going to be 50 or 60 years before a large proportion of the population doesn't remember that their grandparent passed away in this acute mortality shock that influenced the country.
Ripples of grief that will change American families long after the pandemic loosens its grip. Elise Preston, CBS News, New York.
If you need a little extra sleep at night, need a little help getting to sleep, well, you are not alone. A new survey by the American Academy of Sleep and Medicine suggests nearly 2/3 of Americans are taking sleep aids. More than 2,000 adults across the U.S. participated in that survey. The top choice was melatonin, followed by prescription medication. Nearly 40% said the pandemic caused their use of sleep aids to increase. Analysts from the University of Michigan found older adults are likely to experience some form of ageism. Researchers surveyed more than 2,000 people between 50 and 80 years old. They found that 93% of people experienced at least one form of ageism daily. Scientists say people with poor mental or physical health face discrimination every day. And that is a look at today's health news. A little bit later, what a study shows about the cost of a 4th of July cookout this year.
Speaking of, we'll start to heat things up as we head toward a holiday weekend. We'll break down the forecast next. It was nice that temperatures behaved once again, certainly after we had a pretty hot weekend overall. Fortunately, Mother Nature cooperated and cooled us back down into the lower 80s the other day. And then quite a drop in temperatures. We actually had upper 50s and lower 60s this morning because of quite a bit of dry air. That's been a really refreshing change of pace around here. But that same air mass catapulted us back into the lower in a couple mid 80s for this afternoon. But you saw how the numbers over the past few hours have trended downward a bit. That's actually because even though we started the day out with a good deal of sun, we're starting to see more cloud cover coming on in from the west. And at times the radar has hinted at some possible showers trying to work in out of south central Kansas. But even though there's enough mid-level moisture just upstairs to support some rain, we're pretty dry at the surface, so whatever's trying to make its way down from about southern parts of Labette County, Montgomery County, and then back toward Elgin, Chautauqua County, maybe a couple sprinkles or very light showers that a lot of us will not see as we go throughout the course of the evening. But everyone's seeing quite a bit of cloud cover, not just from Indigo Sky, but also from 7th and Range Line from the east side of Joplin. 79 at the airport, north breeze at 8, but that dew point sitting in the mid 50s. That's one reason why it felt a lot nicer today compared to the past week, and why we're not going to expect much in the way of rain chances this evening. Most of us are sitting near 80 degrees right now. We'll continue to drop back through the 70s, down to the 60s by midnight, and I'm thinking lower 60s for the morning ahead of us, while we continue to keep an eye on this quick wave passing through. It's not because of anything at the surface. In fact, high pressure is right on top of the region, and as more dry air tries to get filtered in, it's trying to continue to eat away at any rain chances trying to come out of south central and southwestern Kansas. Upstairs, this little kink in the jet, while we're on the cooler side of the jet, this kink shows a quick wave that has been launching those showers out in southwestern and south central Kansas. Again, the overall trend is for those rain chances to die out and stay mainly west of the Flint Hills. But as that wave passes overhead, everybody's got to deal with partly to mostly cloudy skies tonight. But I think we'll trend more toward the partly cloudy side of things as we head toward your Tuesday morning drive, with the lows back in the lower 60s. Then I think we just look flat out great for tomorrow. Mostly sunny skies and a light breeze. And with that dry air mass, we're going to warm up fast once again once we get past sunrise. 63 in the morning, for example, 80 by noon, and pushing highs near 85 degrees. So quite a warm up, but we keep the humidity levels quite low. So it's going to be a nice day tomorrow. We'll go back near 60 Wednesday morning, and then unfortunately, we have to head back near 90 degrees under a mostly sunny Wednesday, because that's when this upper level risk will try to start building back in, but we never really get underneath its direct control. So what that means is, even though we're hot for Thursday and to kick off the holiday weekend, a quick moving front along with this jet sitting on top of us is going to try to keep some rain chances in the forecast, but mainly isolated random pop-up storms Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and potentially on the 4th of July during the morning. I think 4th of July afternoon and evening look okay, but we got to get ready for the heat to return now. 85 tomorrow, lower 90s through Friday, and maybe mid-90s by the 4th.
Temps in the 80s while they're here are certainly worth enjoying anyway.
And quite a drop during the night. That feels really nice too.
Agreed. Thanks, Nick. Hey, if you're looking for a fun summer activity, you might check out Joplin's Wildcat Glades. It features plenty of nature trails and a river, as well as some recreation areas where families can hang out and just enjoy nature. Park is also important to the local ecosystem, which is something the Wildcat Glades Friends Group is working to conserve.
you can rent a pavilion, you can bring a hammock, you can rent our hammocks and hang out in the park. We'll tell you what trees you can use to put those hammocks on and teach you how to use a hammock. So what can you not do out at Wildcat Park? That's really the question.
It's going to be a water festival at the Glades on August 13th. Coming up, how some corporations are responding to the recent Roe v. Wade Supreme Court decision. But first, we honor a local veteran. David Morrison served in the U.S. Navy from 1973 to 1981. The Independence, Kansas native served in Vietnam. He was aboard the USS Thomaston. He received an Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal and a Vietnam Service Medal. And we salute Yeoman Second Class David Morrison, a four-state hero.
Nick Kelly.
Topping today's Consumer Watch, Americans are going to have to dig even deeper into their pockets to celebrate this 4th of July. The American Farm Bureau Federation released a new survey that found the Independence Day cookout is going to cost Americans 17% more on average than it did a year ago. The biggest price jumps come from beef products. Beef can cost 36% more. Costco is hit with a lawsuit over its popular rotisserie chickens. The store's shareholders filed a lawsuit against the company over treatment in raising their chickens. The suit alleges Costco subjects chickens to cruel deaths in violation of state laws and that they're bred too quickly and unable to stand on their own. Costco has not commented on the suit. While the nation grapples with the new landscape of abortion rights, so does the business community. Trinity Chavez reports on how companies are responding to the Supreme Court's reversal on abortion rights.
With emotions spilling over into violence, corporate America is watching and beginning to cautiously shape policies for the end of Roe v. Wade.
I think it really comes down to equal access to care.
A number of major companies say they will cover expenses for workers choosing to travel out of state for abortion services. Some made that call weeks ago after a leaked draft of the Supreme Court opinion, including the review platform Yelp.
I think that for companies who care about issues of diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging, they can't sit by and be silent on this issue because it really does impact every aspect of a woman's life.
But not all major companies are taking a public stance. In a Reuters poll of major U.S. law firms, most stayed quiet.
That silence is in part because of fear of backlash over one of the country's most highly charged issues. Companies that have expressed more conservative views in the past have largely chosen not to comment. And legal experts say those who do cover travel expenses for abortion services could be exposed to lawsuits or potential criminal liability. California is a sanctuary state for abortion rights, and residents are bracing for the cost of people from other states seeking services.
It unfairly redistributes the burden of that health care to states that are still, pro-women.
In states like Mississippi, where the last abortion clinic will close within days, those travel expenses could be considerable. Every neighboring state is also banning abortion, so women will have to fly or drive long distances for the procedure. Trinity Chavez, CBS News, New York.
If you have plans to fly anytime soon, plan to get to the airport early. The number of people who went through security checkpoints just hit a pandemic-era high. Yesterday, the TSA reported more than 2.4 million people passed through its checkpoints. That's the most since February of 2020, before the pandemic tanked travel demand. This surge comes as flight cancellations continue, with more than 800 flights canceled just yesterday. A final check of the forecast next. Up next on the CBS Evening News, details on an Amtrak train that derailed in Missouri. Then on KOAM News at 6, we're going to hear from the Kansas Attorney General Derek Schmidt about the Supreme Court's decision concerning Roe v. Wade. Plus, lawsuits are filed against the state of Oklahoma challenging a law cracking down on protests, and why tickets for FIFA World Cup games in Kansas City are going to be exempt from sales tax. Stay with us for the CBS Evening News and then KOAM News at 6. We've been enjoying relatively mild temperatures, and that's going to continue a bit longer, but eventually, of course, the thermometer is going to climb again.
Yeah, thankfully we'll hold off on that until Wednesday, Dal. That's when I'm expecting highs to at least get back near 90, certainly lower 90s through the rest of the week, certainly going into the holiday weekend. In the short term, though, anyone checking the radar might look at rain trying to sneak in, but most of us will be dry tonight and dry tomorrow for sure, with highs near 85.
Thanks, Nick, and thank you for joining us. The CBS Evening News is next, and of course, we're going to be right back here for KOAM News at 6. See you then. Let's make it a great evening.